Can you help but move to this music, Jonathan? Seriously?
Oh, I need to move it up a little bit more.
I think kick it up a notch. Awesome. All right, everybody, welcome. We are here at noon on Tuesday, and we are going to learn today what it takes to get a cheese from udder to cutter. In other words, from, say, high in the Swiss Alps to your kitchen table. And who's going to help us with that today is Jonathan McDowell from Aniata Cheese Company. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Glad you could make us. So tell us a little bit about you and Aniata and how you got started with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Aniata Cheese Company is a wholesale distributor importer located here in North San Diego County. We actually began about, I guess I'd say probably 14 years ago now.
Gosh, crazy.
14 years in Del Mar. We started off as a cheese shop. Amongst Venissimo Mission Hills, one of the first cheese shops in San Diego County.
Yeah.
We saw a gap in the market for artisan cheeses that wasn't being fulfilled, so we, set our sights on that, started bringing in new cheeses, selling them out of the shop.
Yeah.
Eventually started doing some wholesale to some local chefs and restaurants.
And cheese shops. I'm
and
going to
cheese
jump
shops.
in right there really quick because believe it or not, so Jonathan, Aniata, the cheese shop in Del Mar in the Flower Hill Promenade, was there before Venissimo. And so when we first moved here and I knew I kind of wanted to do a cheese shop, I used to camp out like on Tuesday afternoon in the Flower Hill Center and just watch how many people went in and out of Aniata to kind of gauge, how many people are buying cheese and et cetera, et cetera. And so that kind of, just helped, okay, maybe this could work, down in San Diego.
Yeah.
So, after about, I guess it was a year we were working, I knew that Aniata, Bob and Martina were selling some wholesale. So I remember reaching out to them and saying, hey, would you be interested in selling, wholesale to Venissimo? And that's kind of how that all started too. I think we kind of helped each other and it was super cool.
Absolutely.
And then it went from there. Isn't
and that's
that awesome?
it.
Yeah.
That's it. Exactly.
Crazy.
So we did the wholesale thing, sold to shops and restaurants and chefs, and eventually kind of started transitioning out of retail, focusing more on distribution.
Yeah.
What year was it? Probably the shop was sold to you guys.
Yeah, I think that was, think a minute, 2007, I think.
2007.
Somewhere right around there.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So 2007, the Aniata Cheese Shop became Venissimo Del Mar, and we ended up setting up a warehouse in Vista, where we're still at, and now we focus entirely on distribution and importation.
Of cheese.
Of cheese. We do other stuff too, cured meats, condiments, anything that really falls into the specialty catalog or gourmet cheese shop.
Sure. Anything that might be delicious.
Yeah, anything delicious. Yeah, exactly. Gourmand at that.
Gourmand at that. But it definitely started with cheese.
It started with cheese,
right?
yeah. And, Bob will probably tell you, when he set up the cheese shop with Martina, we're going to be the best customers of the shop. And, to this day, here we are.
And they
selling
are
the best.
Because back then, there weren't choices for where you could get great cheese.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, it was really slim. I remember there were just a couple places, and none of them were here in San Diego. Had to go elsewhere to try to find, the good stuff.
Exactly.
And I remember Bob telling a story, back then too, if you wanted a 200-pound wheel of Emmental or a 100-pound Parmigiano Reggiano, you had to buy the whole thing.
Yeah.
And for one little cheese shop to be sitting on 100, 200 pounds of cheese, that's tough, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a lot to move through. I mean, it is, definitely.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. So, Aniata, how many cheeses would you say, if we'll just stick with cheeses, do you have at any time to choose from?
Oh, it's a lot. I mean, we constantly have stuff rotating in. I would easily say, 250 plus cheeses.
That's just crazy. That's a lot of cheese.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot in the pipeline all the time. I mean, we try to turn our inventory as fast as we can just to make sure that we're getting the freshest stuff out to the shops in a timely manner. For us, it's very important to represent the cheesemaker to our best ability, getting product the freshest to the counter so that the consumer is enjoying the product how it's intended to be
eaten, which is kind of tricky because cheese changes over time. So
definitely.
You've got to coordinate, it seems almost easier for us at the shop. It's already come in that ready condition. But you have to backtrack and plan when to order it to get it how you want it.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, a lot of times, and I'm sure you guys experience it at the shops, is you'll have customers come in and, they're looking for Applebee's Cheshire.
Sure.
And they expect you to have it on the spot, but realistically, the time frame, to get Applebee's Cheshire, I mean, you're looking at about 6 to 8 weeks, for it to
Crazy.
even get to the United States, to us on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So just maintaining the cold train, across the United States through Europe and getting a product here, it changes hands a lot, and it takes a lot to
get from
here.
A to B. So we're going to start at A in just a second, but this brings up a good point that whenever you go to a cheese shop, be it Venissimo or another one, and they pull every cheese you ask for, they pull the old Monty Python cheese shop skit.
Yeah, exactly.
Not today.
Yeah. And what do you have?
And what do you have? And the truck broke down. Never on Tuesdays. That is real.
It is.
Because trucks break down.
They do.
You can't possibly carry 2,000 cheeses at any given time. You have to make a selection.
Exactly.
So that's the real deal.
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go all the way to point A. So I'm just going to bring up one because it's so well known, and Emmental, for an example. That is a tiny, tell us, that up in the Swiss Alps where this is made, right? And these are little farmers, co-opted milk, but just envision that, right?
Exactly.
Way up there.
Exactly.
How did you even find who to get an Emmental from, say? How do we start? Just there.
Well, typically, with us, with the Emmentaler, fortunately, when you're importing cheeses, you usually have a person involved in the country that you're working with, so some kind of exporter or consolidator who has a catalog of cheeses, who does what we do as a distributor, represents a group of producers. Well, they'll represent their producers, say in Switzerland per se.
Okay.
So Gormino, for example, when we did the Emmentaler cutting event at Liberty Station, would be a perfect example of that.
So they've got a library of all the cheesemakers and cheeses that they might represent and could offer to you as the importer here.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then, we'll work with them. So Emmentaler, for example, slow food Emmentaler, we're talking about a cheese that's made probably 16 days out of the month, maybe 1 or 2 wheels a day.
It's crazy.
So we have this cheese that's made slow food Emmentaler, aged 15 to 22 months. So we're talking from the time the cow's milked, the milk is turned into curd. The curd is turned into a piece of cheese, and ages out. We already have 15 to 22 months invested in that.
Yeah, that's crazy right there. So that cheesemaker has invested 15 to 22 months.
Exactly.
Right? Without any income, without anyone knowing who's going to buy that.
Exactly. That's it. It's tucked back. It's aging out, doing its thing.
Right there in maybe their little hut.
Correct.
Whatever you want to call it.
The affinage,
So
in the cellar, it'd be aging. And we're, during that time period, the cheesemaker, the affineur per se, the person who ages the cheese would maintain it, make sure that, it's developing properly, it has the flavor profiles that they're looking for, and so forth. And then from there, the cheese would be selected and then packaged up. And
that's what that kind of exporter there would do.
Correct.
That company. Okay?
Exactly.
And you're talking to them because you say, hey, I need to get my hands on some of this Emmentaler.
Correct, yeah. Okay. So essentially we would place an order, for cheeses from their catalog that we wanted to bring in.
Okay.
Place the order. The cheese comes to a consolidation point in Europe. And then from there it gets loaded on a boat and comes into the east coast of America.
And a boat. So how long does that boat take?
It can add about a couple week or 2 weeks, depending really on transit time leaving. I mean, oftentimes, it's kind of funny to believe that there could be traffic in the ocean, but a lot of times, coming into the East Coast, you can have a backup
traffic jam,
traffic jam. Exactly, boats coming into port. That could be affected by strikes at the dock, FDA. So there's so many different variables that can hold that up.
Yeah. And I want to go back even one extra step. Yeah, listen to that traffic. Hear it out there.
Yeah.
I understand too, Jonathan. So cheeses, of course, coming to the U.S. have requirements out of the gates, and I know one of them is big is labeling.
Exactly.
So cheesemakers there have to go through a whole process from the start to label their product properly or describe it properly, right, to get into this country, which is a lot of work on their part to do so, right?
And that's one thing that we really look for and is required is, ingredients is such a big thing, is knowing what's the cheese made out of, being set up with the FDA, having their what would you say, registration with the FDA. They have a number essentially with the FDA, and
that's wild for a piece of cheese, for a type
for
of cheese.
For a piece of cheese, to be on the approved exporter list or approved cheesemaker list per se.
And that's what they do there. The company there is going to make sure that they've got all the right registration numbers. So far, you just want that cheese.
Correct.
And you're trying to time out what's going to cost and how long it's going to take.
Exactly.
To get here.
And we like to have that information on file too, because as an importer, you need to have all of that in one place. And for us to be able to provide ultimate transparency, we have taken this upon ourselves to be able to collect this data and have it available in the event we needed it for anything.
Sure. You can identify each wheel, each piece that comes in.
Exactly. In the facility that it came from, in case there was ever a food illness outbreak or whatnot.
Sure.
Having everything in place, it's cheap insurance.
Yeah, you kind of think that only applies to automobile with a big serial number or something like that, right? Not a piece of cheese.
Exactly.
Or a lot of cheese or pallet or whatever.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's it.
It's crazy. Yeah. So it is on the boat.
So it's on the boat.
Floating along. Could
Correct.
be a week or two. Finally, it gets to a port here in the U.S.
Yes.
Then what happens to that piece? So it's in a box. I'm trying to just envision this.
Yeah,
it's
so just imagine a pallet that's just stacked up. It has cheeses on it. It just came into port. You have forklifts moving around boats. It's noisy. There's a lot that's happening. So this cheese comes in, and then it needs to go through customs or FDA. So you have an FDA inspector on site that's going to go through, make sure all the paperwork's in line.
And that's separate from customs, right? So FDA, or are they kind of the same?
Well, yeah, the FDA.
Okay, they're together. Okay.
So you have the FDA,
man
and then once you receive clearance of the FDA, then product needs to get picked up on the East Coast
somehow. And what's the FDA looking for? Do you think, or are they what are they really digging in? Do you know?
It's interesting. Typically, I would say paperwork is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Because from time to time, if paperwork's not in line, that can cause a holdup with the FDA.
And that could adversely affect a certain type of cheese.
Well, that's exactly
it.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially if you have soft cheeses that are more perishable than a wheel of Emmentaler, the clock is kind of ticking from there, and you're losing shelf life on it.
Exactly.
Or you have customers waiting for it for a special event.
Right. Now you promised them.
Exactly. You promised them it's going to be here. It's not here. So that's
okay.
one of the things.
And that process, is that like a couple hours, you think? Or could that be days or a week or something, sitting at the FDA checking customs?
It's really, I guess, kind of variable at that to say. Sometimes this time of the year, from what we've seen is things tend to clear more rapidly as opposed to the fourth quarter when you have the holiday season, when there's a higher volume of stuff coming in, where things kind of get backed up, and that's when you start seeing the boat traffic out there on the water.
Right, crazy.
But once it's here, once it's cleared,
then it's your turn.
Then it's our turn.
Now you got to jump in.
That's right.
They've handed it off.
Correct. They passed the ball, so we have the ball. We have the wheel.
Got the ball.
We have the 200-pound wheel
rolling
of cheese.
down the sidelines.
That's right. We have the ball. We have the cheese. So what we need to do now is we need to, get this cheese from the East Coast to us.
And typically the East, because we're getting so much from Europe, say.
Correct. Yeah. So from Europe, sticking with the Swiss model. So so we're talking Switzerland, boat, East Coast, clears FDA, gets on a truck, and then that's another week now.
That's crazy. Another truck now. Okay.
So we're looking at another week now. So this is going to get on a truck. We're going to truck it across the United States. We're going to pick it up. We're going to bring it to our warehouse.
So it doesn't even come straight to your warehouse. You've got to go get it. Typically, or it depends, I guess, how big the delivery is.
Yeah, it depends. But typically, come to us, or we'll pick it up at another one of our facilities, and then from there, it comes back to us, and then the process of selling it to the cheese shops or specialty shops or whatnot
takes place. And you've got to warehouse some of this as well, right?
Correct,
you're not bringing it in one day and turning it out the next day. It's got to be stored and kept, right?
Exactly. That's it. So we're storing it, breaking it down, selling it, and that's always the trick, is forecasting what folks are going to be interested in, since it takes so long to
get it here. Like how many wheels do you think exactly would you would need, or and knowing that process that you just told me. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, like you said, 6 to 8 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah. 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. So we've got a list, and we've decided. So now I'm Venissimo, and call, hey Jonathan, we want some Emmental. Of course, what you've got coming or what you've already got.
Exactly.
And you're going to get that to me.
Yes.
And you don't just get it to us here in San Diego. Now you go lots of other places, right?
Correct, yeah. We originally started as a regional distributor, San Diego, started covering off Orange County, LA. Now we're running trucks, Southern California, Tuesday through Friday. Back several months ago, we started running a truck up to San Francisco, so we're covering off the Central Coast and the Bay Area now.
Yeah, that's great. There's just such the appetite for cheese, yeah?
Yeah, there is.
And is it a good mix of, say, retail shops versus, say, chefs and restaurants? And
Yeah, so for us, our background and my background prior to working at Aniata comes in retail. So we tend to focus more on the retailers. That's what we know really well. We do food service. We do work with hotels, chefs and restaurants. So we do have a very mixed demographic of customers. But retail, for us has been a lot of focus.
Yeah, a lot. What you just described to me, I think, answers another question. People often ask, why is cheese so expensive?
Yeah.
And think of that piece of Emmental. The farmer himself has got to make some money. He sat there for 20 months, say, with that cheese. He's got to, make a living, doing that. And then it's got to, the exporter has to make something from it.
Yeah.
You, as the importer distributor, there's got to be something there. Us, as paying the rent, keeping a shop open and getting it out to the table, cost something. This is really one explanation of, cheese is an expensive product. Right?
It is, and
just distribution.
And that's the thing, you think about a lot of the costs in cheese and really trying to digest it and understand it is you look at, just the transportation it requires to get a piece of cheese from point A to point B.
Yeah.
But then, in addition to that, it's just, there's so much involved. You have
refrigeration.
Yeah, refrigeration.
That's
You have, especially if you're buying from Europe, you have currency changes. So
that's another one, right?
Well,
if the dollar's good or bad,
correct,
that affects you.
Absolutely,
right?
Exchange rates and so forth. So there's a lot of different variables, that can influence a cost of cheese. And a lot of the folks that we tend to work with, we're looking at smaller artisanal producers who are not producing on a large scale.
Yeah.
So typically, the cost on their cheese, will be more just because of operating costs of the farm and so forth. So
the economies of scale, it really is true. That holds true in any industry and anything. Yeah, but it makes it's delicious. Whole other topic, but artisan cheese, really delicious. I was reading something, Jonathan, does this make sense to you? So in 2016, it said that the countries that exported the highest dollar volume of cheese, number one was Germany.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? We don't get too many German cheeses. We get some of the artisanal Bavarian style cheeses. But that was interesting to me. I saw that U.S. was number 6 on the list. It said 1.2 billion is exported. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is interesting. And that per se could possibly be based upon commodity cheeses, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Kind of. And when you say that, are we talking like what goes on top of pizza or
possibly
something like that, fast food hamburgers, or who knows, something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting about Germany. I would not have guessed that. But
Germany, Netherlands, France, Italy, Denmark, and the U.S.
And see, France, our Netherlands actually makes sense. You think about all of the
so much cheese
in France. A lot of French, Italian, Denmark. So.
Now, why don't we get? So I see New Zealand was number 7, and then Australia was 13, but we don't get a lot of New Zealand, Australia, nor anything like South America or Mexico.
Yeah.
Is it the cost? Because you can't put it on an airplane. It's too expensive to put it on an airplane.
That's honestly, that's a good question, and I don't entirely know on that. I know there are cheeses that we do see from Australia, New Zealand, not so much.
Distribution maybe? Or
possibly, I'm not sure. It could come back down to FDA setup, what the legal requirements would be to get into the United States. And also, too, we're looking at, geographically, part of the country, part of the world, essentially,
literally
that is
the
other side. So,
possibly
just the cost of bringing product by boat or by air to the United States could
just be prohibitive.
It could just be so expensive, it just doesn't make sense, essentially. So.
Because then, essentially, we would have to maybe sell it for $50 a pound, and that's just out of the reach. It just makes no sense, right, through that whole channel.
Exactly. And,
crazy.
And that's what we see sometimes is when cheeses do get very expensive like that, you tend to tap folks out of the market. And so I'm not sure, honestly. I know folks bring it in. that's a good topic for me because I'm interested in
Right, like let's go see what we
what-
get. But like South America, I think in our whole history we've had one. But I know there's some cheeses made there, but maybe they just don't export a lot. Maybe make more for just, consumption in that country.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
That continent.
The cheeses that I've come across from Central and South America, I know there was a company that was bringing in water buffalo milk mozzarella
Oh, wow.
from was it Central America. And not too long ago, I spoke with some folks in Costa Rica who were making mozzarella.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
And I know they were set up to bring product into the United States, but aside from that, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And Mexico? Do people ask you
Yeah,
for that too? And
well,
we don't see very much
especially
of that.
being
Yeah.
a border town.
Sure.
And there are some folks south of, kind of southeast of Ensenada, in a small little town,
Oh, yeah, is it-
Ojos Negros.
Uh-huh.
It's Cava de Marcelo, and I know they're making some artisan cheeses down there.
Right.
There's a
People ever get some? Like say?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I've spoken. There's a gentleman. His name's Carlos Yescas, who runs a organization called the Old Ways Coalition.
Oh, the coalition. Didn't you do that book, kind of that whole historical book about cheese? I mean, anything you would want to know.
Correct.
About almost every cheese in the world and where to find it.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, he's a figure on Mexican cheeses. He had a shop set up in Mexico, and this is something him and I have spoken, about before. And in all honesty, I think a lot of it just kind of boils down to the FDA requirements and
Yeah.
possibly some of the producers just not being able to make the standard to bring it into the United
Sure.
States.
Sure. Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't say, I know there's a lot of interest. We're seeing more wine from
Right.
Valle Guadalupe.
And that took a while.
Exactly.
And still, you don't see it that much, but it's getting more. So maybe the
Correct.
same thing will happen.
Exactly, and
Cheese
that's
world.
it.
Yeah.
As folks become more interested in, in really what's happening, across the border there.
Mhm.
Who knows? Maybe 5-10 years down the road, we'll be sitting here having a conversation again, and we're talking about Mexican cheeses.
And we could be pairing. And
Yeah, exactly.
Which would be
Exactly.
great. Because I know I've been to the Mercado kind of in Tijuana, and you just see some beautiful artisanal cheeses
Yeah.
that just never ever see here.
Yeah.
So that'd be really cool.
Absolutely.
That'd be good.
Absolutely.
What about the U.S. then? We've talked about bringing it from the outside of the U.S. What about inside the U.S.? There's a lot of artisan producers now.
Yeah.
So many of them. Now, how do you source the U.S. producers and bring those to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of working through the same model is, typically we'll set up a consolidation point.
Okay.
And the way that we look at the United States is we kind of look at it in regions.
Mhm.
So you have the Pacific Northwest, California, kind of that Wisconsin, Midwest area. You have the Northeast Kingdom,
Okay.
Vermont, New England,
Mhm.
and then you get down into the South.
Interesting. So you're saying when you talk regions, maybe some of those producers log together and get it to one point, when
Correct.
it can go out.
Correct.
Ah,
Yeah,
interesting.
so looking at things on a
Mhm.
regional basis in terms of, I guess, consolidation per se. And for us, finding new producers to represent, a lot of it, is going to food shows, the annual American Cheese Society conference that happens in
And that's
July.
a big one, right?
That's a big one.
That's a real big one.
Absolutely, that's a big one, and that's a really good opportunity to meet a lot of cheesemakers. They have a whole event dedicated to it called Meet the Cheesemaker.
That's awesome. Is that where you'll go then, Jonathan, and try
Yeah.
to meet some new ones?
Absolutely.
And see what they're doing that's new.
That's correct,
Mhm.
yeah. And what's nice about it is there's a rotation for the ACS conferences. Every year, there's a East Coast, Midwest, West Coast rotation. So this year it's taking place in Denver.
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to seeing, what cheesemakers kind of from like that Denver,
Yeah, the Boulder, Longmont.
Boulder, Colorado,
Yeah.
Longmont,
Mhm.
even just kind of reaching out a little bit further, who will come into town, and show off some cheeses
Sure.
that we might not have even seen before.
Yeah, exactly. And is that super exciting for you to find the little gems that are new? And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure constantly everybody's like, "What's new?
Absolutely.
I want something new every time.
The
Bring me something new."
The American Cheese Society Conference was one of those things, back in 2012, the first conference I attended was in Raleigh, North Carolina, when I took the CCP exam.
Mhm.
And I went to the conference, and it was so exciting and just completely overwhelming to say.
Right.
But in a
So
great way, it
much.
was overwhelming.
Mhm.
And I felt like when I left the conference, I found my tribe of people and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so the ACS every year just has that buzz for me. I like how it's a very focused event with a lot of cheese folks there. You're able to meet cheesemakers, share. Exactly. It's almost like a body of knowledge where you walk away learning something that you didn't know before you attended.
That's awesome. Almost like the Comic-Con of the cheese world,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Really, it brings everyone together.
It brings everyone together. It's like the unification of a tribe.
Right.
And we joke about it now because we refer to it as cheese camp, and essentially it kind of has like that camping. Cheese campy.
That's nice camping. You just eat cheese and hang out and talk cheese and eat more cheese.
Exactly.
That's a good camp.
And it's really cool, too, to see the new faces that have come into the cheese industry. And
so many, right?
Oh, so many.
Because it was almost 2,000 entrants last year, as I recall, in the competition part of the cheese. 2,000 U.S.-made cheeses.
Correct. And it's grown every single year. I mean, the attendance of first-time participants has grown every single year.
Yeah.
It's just great, to see new people coming into the industry and to see it continue to grow.
Yeah. It's to me, it does kind of mirror that boutique, the wineries, and how wine really exploded in the U.S. And then you had the boutique wineries that just made something really different and special and that represented the region that they're in and that kind of thing. Seeing a lot of that, and from really almost every state, right? I mean, there's some that I'm like shocked that we get some from some of the states.
Yeah.
I know California's big. We know that Wisconsin, of course, huge. New York, Vermont, always. But then we've got some great cheeses coming from Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite blue cheeses is made in Tennessee.
Which one's that?
Sequatchie Cove makes a cheese called Shaker Egg Blue, and
so good.
Probably because I enjoy whiskey, but this is one of my favorites. Raw cow milk cheese that's wrapped in fig leaves that's soaked in Chattanooga whiskey.
That's ridiculous, but that's awesome.
It is, and it's great. It's just one of those cheeses I find very special. It's very tasty, and it's always a really fun sell. And when we have it in stock, everyone's always real excited to order it and to sell some. So.
Yeah. And say it again, the name of it?
Shaker Egg Blue.
Shaker Egg Blue. I hope we have some. I think we do.
If
not, we better get some.
Yeah, you probably do. Oh, yeah, we have some right now. Yeah, we try to keep that in stock as much
as you can. What else is kind of new? Like, could you say is kind of a new favorite? It's kind of recent.
Right now, I'm really excited about the Pascal Bévert line that we're importing into the United States.
This is a beautiful French, right?
Correct, yeah. And Bévert is, very well known in France and even Western Europe and, actually internationally. And what's neat about them, if you were to situate them, with all the affineurs, in France, is that they operate as both cheesemakers and as affineurs. So they have their 4 workshops, which are regionally located in different parts of France that specialize in the production of specific cheeses. And then they also have their maturation facilities where they'll get cheeses from other producers, age them out, and then package them up as well.
Right, and send them out. And then they being the affineur, their whole job is to make sure that they get it to that optimal condition.
Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And for them, it's neat. It's just full transparency, where the milk comes from. They have a very unique process for picking up their milk. They're collecting milk 2 times a day from the local farmers, bringing it to the workshops. It's very timely process. However, for them, it's very beneficial because it allows them to control the quality of the milk, which yields a higher quality cheese product.
Awesome. So you're getting something really good.
Exactly. They do a terrific job, and it's been fun working with them, and we're thrilled to represent them.
Have you met the man, Pascal? I've never met Pascal.
Pascal, he's a great man, wonderful gentleman. Met for the first time at Fancy Food back in January, and his son Fabrice has really spearheaded the company and has really pushed it in a new direction and really hands-on approach. And kind of going back to the transparency thing, that's what's really nice is they've made all this educational materials available to the shops, where, Fabrice is located in London, and say, you have a shop that brings in product and you want to set up a Skype training, he makes himself totally accessible to.
That's great, right?
Exactly.
Because that part of it's that education, to know what you're getting. It's a simple product, but then a complicated product, cheese, right? It's milk.
Absolutely.
It's milk salt.
Milk, salt, rennet.
There's information to be had about each one.
Exactly.
And the fact that now the world has become just this one place where we can all share and, like you said, be on a Skype, a FaceTime this fast and meet the maker, meet the affineur, learn everything we want about it.
Exactly.
It's just the coolest thing.
It is.
That is really good.
It is.
And you just got back from Ireland. Any cool
cheeses
there? Did you get to eat anything we haven't had? Or I don't know so many Irish. Most of them are the stinky guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, goubine is always a favorite of mine.
Okay.
I had quite a bit of goubine, but I was in Dublin on Saturdays at the Temple Bar Market. There's some folks there that have a cheese stand set up, Corleggy cheese.
Oh, beautiful cheeses, right?
The beautiful cheeses.
Beautiful.
They do some raw goat, raw sheep milk cheeses.